Andrew's Army, the Republican Roundtable. Andrew Vehorn, our host. Thank you, Andrew. Chris Saxman, who is a former House member and now is the executive director of Virginia Free. He's got a big luncheon tomorrow that I'm crashing. We work for food. And Emily Brewer is with us. Emily, longtime Republican consultant in the Chesapeake area. And Emily is running for the House of Delegates, which is District 64. In a June primary, she's challenging incumbent Rick Morris, who has had some issues. He's been charged with 7 felonies. And so I'm not sure how that's going to play out. But Emily challenging him for that right now. She is Rick Morris's only challenger. We also expect Richard Krause is on his way. Krause is coming. My wife's favorite consultant of all time in history of all consultants. Emily, no offense meant. And we understand we might get a special appearance from Senator, I'm not running for Attorney General, Bill Stanley.
Dollar Bill Stanley.
And let's talk about this Quinnipiac poll that we were talking a little bit about. And we saw where it is in the Republican primary overall with Ralph Northam at 38%, Ed Gillespie at 34%. So Northam with a 4-point lead, and Northam is also ahead of any of the other candidates. He's ahead 38-29 over Stewart, so about the same there, 5-point difference. He had a 9-point lead over Whitman. Actually, it went up over Whitman to some extent. But look, I guess the news, first poll out of the box, Ralph Northam with a lead over Ed Gillespie. Andrew, what do you make of the whole thing?
What's not to like about Ralph Northam? I mean, this is a guy, he comes from an old Virginia family. He went to VMI. He's a veteran. He saves kids' lives for a living. And he's fairly conservative as a Democrat. There's nothing not to like about this guy. So that's not surprising. It's a long way out, but they're going to have to find a message. You know, you look down at the crosstabs of this poll and what issues are important to Virginians, and it's still, by a large margin, the economy and jobs. Folks still don't feel that things are turning around. McDonnell was the jobs governor. Terry McAuliffe has continued that mantra, and by most accounts has done a fairly good job of continuing that. But folks still aren't seeing that. So these folks are going to have to come up with a message quickly and define that.
Chris?
Predominantly, this poll is a generic party ID poll. It shows the strength of Ed Gillespie in the party, and it also shows the strength of Ralph Northam in his party. I mean, the drop-off you see is also indicative, I think, of name ID for Whitman and Stewart and Wagner. So Ralph is strong. I think he's the favorite going into 2017.
Right.
Just because the natural tendency for Virginians to do opposite of that which is in the White House still holds, especially with Trump energizing the Democratic base going into 2017.
Yes.
But and they have a unified candidate at the top of the ticket, which is really, really important. And plus, Virginia has turned, I would say, purplish to blue in its electorate, statewide.
I you know what? I'm with you, Saxman. I think Virginia's a blue state. Something's got to change it. Looking at the numbers that came out of 2016. Now, Ben Tribbett yesterday said Northam was going to win in a landslide. He predicted a double-digit win. Now, that's hard to see, but he predicted that, and he said just what Chris said. He said the anti-Trump Democrats are going to be fired up. Like, here's an example. I talked to a woman, I'm not going to say who it is, yesterday in Northern Virginia in the Peterson-Servo world. And a very nice lady, hardcore Democrat. And I mean, she was just so upset and so beside herself over this election and just hates Trump. Like, he hasn't even done anything. I mean, talk about a honeymoon. There's like, these people view him as a satanic figure. And there's no honeymoon in that. I mean, they're going to be motivated in November.
Well, that was the same thing for Republicans in 2009 with Bob McDonnell's election over Creed Eads. But the Democrats also had, like the Republicans, a very divided field going into the nomination. But the Democrats also passed the Affordable Care Act, and that was a driving force in the 2009 election. And we have to remember that. and we're moving in that direction. So there was not only fuel on the fire, they provided a lot of oxygen for that fire going into the fall. So the Democrats have an opportunity, like the Republicans did in 2009, but will the Republicans give them the fuel and the oxygen for that fire? That's what's critical. I mean, because Trump can turn this thing around. He's not your typical Republican.
Right.
And what he might do some game-changing things. The economy might be booming at the time, and he might not be passing anything that's really going to unwind the Affordable Care Act. And it might be far more judicious and less, I don't know, what's the word? He might be more incremental in his approach.
Trump had a wide appeal to so many people, and he appealed to so many independents. And so when I started looking back at this poll, I looked at a couple things. You can't look at the top line points. You've got to dig deeper into the poll. So I looked a little deeper at it, and surprisingly, Ed has, a 19% favorability rating, far above and beyond any other candidate. And the interesting part is he has a 19% favorability rating with independents, whereas Northam's only coming in at 14%. So we've got to also look, as Virginia turns into a purplish blue state, we've got to look at someone who can also appeal to independent voters, because that's what Trump did, and I think that's what Ed's going to be able to do, as evidence in the poll.
Look, there's no question Ralph Northam's the favorite going in. No question. You look at these poll numbers, you look at the history of Virginia, everything else that is going on. He's also a very attractive candidate, a very nice guy, has a regional base. I think he's going to be very tough to beat. He's the favorite going in. But as we all said, we don't know what's going to happen between now and November. And as I said over and over and over, people that might be upset right now, jobs and economic prosperity is non-ideological. Okay, it's the great unifier. A paycheck is not politically philosophical, right? If you have a job and you didn't have a job, things are looking better. You really don't care what the party is. On the flip side of that, there's no question that Trump is going to be downsizing government, right? You look at the picks he's made, federal jobs are going away. And so those federal workers are still going to be around Northern Virginia come November, and the backlash could be like nothing you've ever seen to make a statement.
Without question. I think you hit that big voting block in Fairfax. Even though Ed's
Huge.
From Northern Virginia, if he is the nominee, he still has to overcome that. And the demographic shift in Virginia can't be understated. It can't be understated. And while Hispanics and Asians tend not to vote as obviously strongly as in national elections, culturally, the Democrats will be organizing and trying to get those folks to the polls. So this state is becoming sort of like the old Tom Davis district in Northern Virginia.
Right.
And it's just a shift, and Republicans have to understand that and go after those segments of the population, and not just for glitz and glamour and this kind of stuff. They have to go in there and create relationships within these communities and show that their policies will help those people out, like the jobs you were talking about.
You're 100% right. Go ahead, Andrew.
And that's something folks have to remember. We're riding this Trump high right now. Trump lost Virginia.
Right.
So you look at...
We lost by 212,000 votes.
A lot of votes, and they all came out of Northern Virginia. But you look at what Corey Stewart is doing on Twitter, just for example. He's taking that Trump philosophy and bringing it to Virginia. Well, Trump didn't win Virginia. So we're going to have to do something different than what Trump did nationally. I don't know that Northam is going to be able to run as the anti-Trump candidate. I think he'd be better served to let the grassroots whip themselves into a frenzy and kind of rise above that, because if he does run as the anti-Trump candidate, he risks alienating a lot of Republicans and galvanizing them. And versus a federal election, it's a much different electorate.
Well, that's the other thing, and it's going to be interesting. I think you're right. I mean, if I was running the Ralph Northam campaign, I would just let the whole Trump backlash thing wash itself out. But we don't know what Northam we're going to get in this campaign. That's
You're exactly
really
right. This is a guy who...
We don't know what Northam we're going to get.
But for Jeff Fredericks, Twitter happy fingers would be a Republican senator right now.
That's right.
This is not a far-left Democrat, and you're not going to be able to paint him as one. This guy reminds me of Warner 2001 running for governor.
Right.
I was in college at the time in Radford, and I remember on the front page of the biweekly Southwest Times, you had Warner out shooting assault rifles with the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office. This is the guy who sponsored the NASCAR event that had the Bluegrass song, which is only rivaled by Bill Stanley's Bluegrass song. But he had a very good appeal to rural voters. And I think for the first time since 2001, Democrats can really not make a play, but get better margins than they ever have in the 5th, 6th, and 9th districts west of Charlottesville.
I don't think they need it, though.
They don't.
I mean, to win Virginia,
They don't need it.
they're not going down there anymore.
Right.
They've sort of said, well, the 9th's gone. There used to be the fighting 9th. No one's fighting for the 9th anymore.
It's gone.
It's gone. And the growth has been
Gone to Republicans.
Gone to Republicans in big way, in huge margins. They have to turn out their base in Fairfax. They have to turn out their base in the cities and along the urban, the Golden Crescent. And the fight's going to be in the suburbs. The floor for Republicans is about 45. That was where E.W. Jackson was. The Democrats have a structural advantage now in the Commonwealth. Can they turn it out and be unified to do something that is positive to get their voters out? That's the question.
And this might, I don't know. You look at what we were talking about earlier about the fight being in the suburbs and the moms bringing in new electorates and new voters that haven't traditionally come out to the polls. And Ralph Northam saves kids' lives for a living.
Yeah.
If the fight's in the suburbs, that wins.
Well, if it's healthcare is the subject. If the economy is the subject, right. does a pediatric neurologist, good guy that he is from VMI, does he do that? Can he present that? And he can.
He can.
But does the political wind hit the sail at that time?
But healthcare, just in the recent poll, is only polling at 5%.
Yeah,
Common
that's
sense.
then.
So the question is, what Ralph Northam are we going to get? Because the first Democrat Ralph Northam ever voted for was Ralph Northam when he ran for state senate. So we don't know what we're going to get. Now, he's moved left in his verbiage in order to appease the progressive base, kind of what I call the McKeechan base, if you will. And he sends emails out blasting Trump, and it's kind of nonsense. Look, sorry, guys. I mean, I get your emails. Some of them are laughable. But I get it, right? You don't want a challenge from the progressive wing. I get it. But all he really does, he sends these emails out. Trump stinks. Trump's awful, whatever. But policy-wise, all of his – look, here's what I'm saying, Chris, and I'm not being succinct, so I'll be succinct. He sends emails out blasting Trump, but there's no policies he puts out that are progressive.
It doesn't matter. He's raising money off it and building his lists.
Right.
That's the whole point. And if he stops doing it, it means it's not working. If they keep sending him out there, it means it's working. And you go to his website. I think Act Blue runs the backside of this one particular website. You have to sign up, and you can't go further into the website until you give money. I mean, this is the game has changed. It's an online presence. Will people Google him, and will they like him when what they see online? Will the moms in the suburbs who have disparate issues, who are going to be the deciding vote in this election, going to say, I feel better with this person than this person? And it's happening all the time now. It's not the big dump at the end where September and October where you have these big ad buys. It's constant, and this is when decisions are made.
So I think the consensus here is that Ralph Northam's the favorite going in, and something has to knock it off stride. And if it's Gillespie Northam, I think it's going to be close. But right now, I would put Northam as the favorite, right?
I think so. That's a close race. But it gets back to what Chris said about where are the headwinds. If we haven't seen what Northam's message is going to be yet. He hasn't come out with it. He's just been the nice guy. He's the only Democratic candidate, so he doesn't have to have one. Right. Which probably bodes well for us because our guys are going to come out of the primary tested. Their message is going to be tested. They're going to be able to fine-tune their points. And Northam is going to be probably still putting his together.
And remember now,
but their negatives will have been driven up.
Yes,
and
the negatives.
And this is
of the Republican candidates.
Of the Republican candidate. Whoever is going to come out, they're going to be winged.
Right.
Right. And in this kind of an election, driving up someone's negatives is critically important.
Also, let's get to the lieutenant governor's race, and Badger had to step out a minute. And let's start on the Democratic side. Yesterday, Susan Platt with us at the Democratic Roundtable. Looks like she's going to run for lieutenant governor. Looks like Ben Tribbett is going to run her campaign. She's expected to get in, I think she said the middle of January, if I believe. So I want to get Andrew back here for this, if you can, Andrew. So let's go to the Democratic side, Andrew. I have said for a long time, Justin Fairfax is going to be the nominee. Nobody's going to beat him. I think on the stump he's a beast. First it's Eileen Filler-Corn, Gene Rossi, this, that. Now it's this Susan Platt, nice woman. What is the deal with the Democrats? McAuliffe went around trying to recruit somebody against Fairfax, John Grisham. Then they talked to Joe Theismann. What is their problem with this guy?
Yeah, I don't know, John. We were talking over the break. When were the last time that the Democrats had a minority candidate in a statewide primary? In Virginia, or on a ballot on a statewide ticket in Virginia. And we go back to, I think, McEachin in 2001. And they have they have a minority running who is, by all accounts, a fantastic campaigner. He inspires loyalty. He's fired up the grassroots. And the party elders are trying to push him out. And
you know what I think is so funny is the Democrats probably will cringe when I say this, but I feel like Justin Fairfax is the Democrats' version of Trump. And I think that they think he is, a bit unorthodox, and I think that that's not as appealing to the insider circles in the Democratic Party.
Something's going on. I cannot for the life of me understand why they're not excited about a candidate that I happen to think is, I like the guy. He's a friend of mine. I've been out with him. He's a great stump speaker. He's very exciting. He's got an unbelievable educational background. He's got a wonderful family. And he almost be more.
His wife's a dentist, isn't she?
His wife's a dentist.
So they're small business owners.
I think he went to Harvard. They signed the front of the checks. I don't, for the life of me, cannot figure out what is going on. And look, I met Susan Platt yesterday. She certainly has the credentials, and she's kind of fired up about it. Ben's going to run her campaign. If you take Ben out of the equation, I wouldn't even give her.
She's a DC lobbyist.
But she's a federal lobbyist.
Sure. How do you translate that into? I guess McAuliffe did it, and Gillespie's doing it, but that's going to be tough in this climate.
Being a federal lobbyist,
you have to take
somebody
on
that's a lawyer and a dentist.
Small businessman.
I don't get. Why don't they like Justin Fairfax?
Just looking at her
Do you have
bio.
any idea?
I have no idea, but that's their call. Why don't people like just Jill Vogel? Why don't we like just Ed Gillespie? It's a market. People want to run for office. There's going to be no shortage of candidates for any number of offices, and she has her bio is pretty strong. She was chief of staff to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
She ran Chuck Robb's campaign, so
Right.
she's well known in Virginia circles.
Yes.
Can that translate though into votes in a primary? And that's what's critical.
I don't see how anybody is going to beat Justin Fairfax.
I don't either, but
I really don't see it. Maybe I'm seeing something else, but I've been saying it for a long time, and I knew Eileen wouldn't run because I knew after Eileen, Hillercorn, who was a darling woman with a great family. I know her husband, her children. I love her to death. But I knew after she went around the state, she was going to figure out that Fairfax was going to wax her, and she would not run. We're out of time for this segment. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Andrew's Army. We'll be right back. Stay with us.